Morning. This is Norma Cowie for this week's Wednesday Norma Talks. It's like, where do I start? I have been watching Dancing with the Stars from I missed the first year because I didn't pick up. And through all my busyness, all my traveling, everything else, for all these other years, I've been watching Dancing with the Stars. This year, they moved to Disney. Just happened to have a Disney. So, and what I like about it now is I can watch it anytime I want. So it doesn't like, even though I always have had a PVR, but this is, I can turn on to Disney. Yesterday, I was watching Monday night. They had two nights this week, but I watched Monday night. And there was one contemporary dance that not only brought tears to my eyes, but it made me really think about a lot of different things. But let me explain, first of all, who was dancing it. One of the youngest dancers on the show is a young girl called Charlie D'Amelio. Apparently a TikTok star, have their own, I think their family has their own show somewhere or other as well. And so anyway, her partner is Mark Ballard. Now, Mark used to dance for years, and then he just sort of went off and did some stage and other things. And so this is his first year back. And so far, they've been leading the pack, so to speak, because as time goes by, very often those at the top fall a little and those at the bottom kind of creep up if you haven't watched it. I love dance. I danced when I was young, and I wasn't able to always to keep that up, but I always have loved to watch it. Now, this Monday night, it was for each contestant was their important year. And this young girl, very brave of her, I thought, talked about her anxiety and depression, dealing with social media pressure. I believe she's 19, not sure about that. She just had her prom. So I think she's 19 now. But anyway, she showed some pictures at times where she was literally hiding and how she felt. And as in especially the last year, the majority of my transformation clients have been about anxiety, depression, not so much depression, but anxiety, people having anxiety. Being the way we have been in the last couple of years, lots of shutdowns, lots of not being able to go here, there, anywhere. There is a lot of anxiety. When I look back over my life, I had to learn how to deal with anxiety. I didn't do well on antidepressants and stuff like that. So I always had to find ways of dealing with my own anxiety and all sorts of things, become aware of what I was doing and how my body was coping with it. And mostly because I had a very, might say, especially from mid-30s on, so it started in my 30s, a life that was in the public eye. You couldn't really go around and show that you were having trouble here or there in your life. So you learn how to cope and deal with that. But when I look back on my life, I see one of the biggest issues I had in my life was communication. Was how to communicate how I felt. I tend to be one of those, well, shut down and go away, and then contemplate and think about things. But anyway, this young girl and Mark did a dance. She danced in white, and you'll see I'm dressed in black and white today, and he was dressed in black face, like a black mixture model face, black up his arms, and they did this most beautiful contemporary dance, how he, being the depression, trying to drag her in, and she fighting to get out of the depression, getting out of the anxiety, fighting. And so it was a beautiful dance. It really was. I think it moved everybody who was watching it in the ballroom, as well as myself, externally out of that. Now, Because I've had a lot to deal, not only with myself, and I think we all do it sometimes, have to deal with anxiety of how we handle it and how we deal with it and how we don't deal with it and what we do. I had my drinking years when I was, which I didn't start drinking till I was quite, it was quite over 30. Oh, I was definitely over 40, I think. Over 34, around my 40s, I began, and I had a little go with the wine bottle. I loved red wine. I still do, but I haven't had a drink with anything for like 16, 17 years now. Now, that's not the important element here. The important element is to really understand what happens. Now, I'm really going to see if I can have this come up that I want to share. I'm going to do my share thing here. Just a second, because I want to go over this. I've talked about this before, but I actually decided to put this up. I'm going to see if I can, okay, hang on a minute. This is what I call my sad man helpless formula. I thought it was a good time to revamp and relook at this. And I'm going to see if I can make it work a little bit, but it's probably not as best as I would like. And what it says is an event occurs in your life which overwhelms you and you do not know what to do. And there is usually one or two responses. You will then either feel sad or mad. In other words, either depressed or angry about the situation. Now, I want to talk about this for a moment. I would go into sad depression rather than mad or angry. I didn't grow up in an angry household. I grew up with my mother depressed. So for me, it's very easy to go into the withdrawal, as I say, go away. I just go away. Other people who are more volatile will often go into the angry, especially if they've been in a situation and they're growing up with angry people around. And so that's more acceptable. And it's not that either is better, it's just different. And the thing is to understand what you tend to do. Are you depressed side or the angry side? The real reality is, if you go a little deeper by taking a breath, you will find you actually feel helpless. And this is where most of us hang out. If you see, because let me just go through this first. Because if you actually move into the helplessness, we don't know what to do. What do? We maybe don't have the skills. We don't have the ability. We don't know. We're sad. What do we do with this energy? What do we do with the situation that created it? We do not know. That was where I came from. I wasn't educated at all on how to communicate when I got sad or when I got upset with something. I would withdraw. How did I know to do that? But I also have friends who they went the opposite way. They got very angry and did the angry thing. Still a communication skill that is not really working. When I was beginning to understand this a little bit, I found that when we went a little deeper and into this helplessness thing, you reach beneath the helpless feeling, you will find you feel unworthy of having it be different. Now, this is where our spirituality or our philosophy of life begins to play a part. If you go beneath the unworthy, you will feel and find the energy of love, the source energy. Now, let me see if I can make this work. I've got to make sure the bottom part's open. By connecting to the universal love source, that's what I call it, or this love energy, you recognize that you're not unworthy, but in fact, you are worthy. By taking the UN away from unworthy, you will realize you are worthy and therefore not helpless. And this might get a little small here. I just want to make sure. Now, that's the key that most of us feel, because we end up really feeling helpless. That's why I've got sad, mad, helpless formula, because we feel helpless of what to do. We don't know. We don't have the skills. We don't have the way to communicate it. We don't have a way of representing that. I remember taking, I always smile actually. I took a communication skills workshop. It was an expensive one. And one thing there was a couple of things I learned from it, I must admit. So it works out that way. But and there was a saying that I remember, it's just gone out of my head right now. But anyway, I always say there's my $2,500 word, the sentence that I was able to utilize. Anyway, it was great cause for action in lots of ways. So when you realize that now the key here is to get that un out of this. When you realize that you are not helpless, you can then choose to make a different decision about the event that's overwhelmed you and deal with it appropriately. When you do that, you are in command of your life. Now, the key here is, which is very difficult to, well, it is, you probably can read it. The bottom I've got in italics. When you accept the situation 100%, you are free to make a different decision. But the key here, it needs to be 100%. Now, I'm just going to stop the share here so we come back into this. This was one thing that I found, which has been very important in my life, and mainly for a lot of clients. In fact, I put the sheet together because very often when I'm trying to explain to them what happens, I have it sort of organized in a way, because we all want to be in command of our lives. And when something occurs and we don't feel in command, we do feel helpless. What am I supposed to do here? And again, communication skills. How do you communicate that? And sometimes you can communicate very well where you stand and what you feel and what you think, and the other person isn't going to accept it at all. And what do you do then? Accept. The acceptance element of life, and I've talked a lot about acceptance, I know that, but you cannot understand how important to accept something 100%. I have a client who remains nameless, and of the thousands of clients I've had, who is in a relationship, and I've been there, so I know this is very familiar to me, and doesn't like what's happening, but will not accept 100% that it will go to how she wants it to be. And so she's stuck. And the same question keeps coming up. About every year, every 6 months. I don't know, it stays the same because she's not accepting 100% that this is not going to change. The key is when you accept 100%, then you're free to make a different decision. Until then, you're not. Because what you want, I want this, I really want this, is going to dominate. You expect the other person to be able to accommodate change or whatever, and we keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and then one day usually it's like enough is enough, and then you make a different decision. Relationships very much are like that. One will just hang on and hang on and hang on, waiting for the other to change. They're not going to change. And three, even no matter how much, you just talk yourself blue. Now, I wish I'd talked more when I look back at my life, but that was me. But some people talk a lot, and then it's just the other person just turns off because they don't want to hear all the, the mouthing that's going on. And so it's like, what do we do when we do get depressed? What do we do when we do get angry? Like, first of all, is to recognize, what is your formula? When you get overwhelmed, do you get sad or mad? Isolate that first. I know I go into the dark side. I'll withdraw. I will try and figure it out or do. I know so many people that just go, oh, well, and it's like they can slough it off really easily. I feel a little bit more than that. So it takes me a wee while sometimes. But I also know from experience, from life, what I've come to understand is that I don't have to feel helpless, because I'm not. I am not unworthy, that's for sure. And that the love of the universe is the willingness to let it go and let the bigger power take care of whatever it is, so that you can become clear in your mind as to the action of what you are wanting to do and what you are wanting to create. Life is here to enjoy. Life is here for you to be as happy as you possibly can be. I believe that. Life is here for you to be as creative as you can be. And so that when a situation does come, because we are humans and we live in a world surrounded by humans, and especially right now where frustration is so high for so many people, the anxiety levels are so high, when we often feel boxed in, not knowing what are we going to do, the acceptance is really, really important, so that you can really work on whatever else you want to choose to do. Life is full of choices, even if they feel limited sometimes, even if it feels like all the doors are closed. It's amazing sometimes. That's why I've been very fortunate in having the tarot for so many years, which has a great philosophy. And that philosophy was where I went first, and I learned it. And I've watched it work in my life, and I watched it work in other people's lives. And then from there, I've actually branched out into more cosmic and recognized a whole lot of other things. But still, I'm a human person. This young girl is a human person who, at a very tender age, was being criticized by social media and just really felt sad. Didn't know what to do. All she wanted to do was go away and hide. That's depression. And yet today, she's on Dancing with the Stars. She said, I've learned to be myself and accept myself as to who I am. I'm paraphrasing there. I can't remember the exact words, but that's basically what she meant. It's hot. It fills my heart, because I know, as a young person, sometimes I used to feel so discombobulated and so isolated. And a lot of it, as I said, is because we're not taught how to communicate in an effective way. We're not taught how to accept things 100% and make choices that will give us freedom and life and enjoyment. We are really here to enjoy life. I really don't like having to talk about the dark subjects sometimes, and I try it. But I realized when I saw this dance, and tears kind of came down my cheeks, that I had to talk about this, because many people suffer. And then I realized, my goodness, I have been dealing with anxiety. Not every client that phones me up says anxiety, but there's been a lot in the last, and what are we in, October now? So let's just take this year. I'm dealing with this anxiety. I don't know what to do with it. And so let's go find what it is. And I do have to say that very often at the bottom of it is fear of loss, fear of being left, fear of knowing what to do if something takes. So the anxiety builds because our mind buys into the fear. And then it reflects into the body, wherever it is you hold stuff, wherever it is, wherever it goes. I would like you to think about the joy on your life. I'd like you to think that you are worthy of creating what it is you want with ease. I want you to think about what you do in a situation that comes out of nowhere and you feel overwhelmed by it. Because that's where it all begins, is being overwhelmed. Something comes out of left field, bang. What am I supposed to do with this? And it's like, how do we handle that? And just to remember, hold your center. Decide what you want to do. Accept this is a situation. Make a decision of what you want to do, and know that you are in command of your life in your way. I hope you get to go into Disney and watch Monday's the important year. It was a great show that night. Just some wonderful emotional stories of people overcoming things. And yes, anyway, Dancing with the Stars. Well, we dance with our lives. So go have fun, dance, jump around, do whatever it is you need to do to make yourself, to let go, to be happy, to be joyful. I wish you well. I'll see you again on Sunday. Oh, before I forget, I want to thank you for the subscriptions. Some new ones have come in. I just really appreciate that. I also want to thank you for the comments that are coming on, and particularly with mental mind treatments. And I want to say it's my pleasure, totally. You enjoy. Bye for now.